Todd Reynolds, welcome to the wonderful world of innova.
Thank you, Philip.
What have you got under your hat? A marmalade sandwich?
I can't show you what's under my hat. It would be bad for everybody. Trust me.
If you had a pet, would you keep it under your hat? And if so, what would it be called? Is your lifestyle so busy that you don't even have a pet?
I have 3 cats, and thank goodness I have a wonderful partner in my household. So we take care of the cats together. But yeah, it's pretty busy.
And their names are Paganini, Heifetz, and what?
No, we've got Cash, Domino, and Ivy. Ivy's a little white one, recent. She's a Walmart cat. Came out of Walmart with a bunch of barbecue stuff during the summer, and there were five girls giving away cats, and Ivy stole our heart, and it was the best thing we ever did.
So you're a pushover. You can't resist a bargain.
I can't resist beauty and good souls, and Ivy's a good soul.
After a hard day, surrounded by electronic, fiddling, extraneous equipment and loopers and buttons and flashing lights, how do you spoil yourself?
Ice road truckers.
Explain.
You don't know Ice Road Truckers?
No.
Oh my goodness. God, I hate reality TV. But I all of a sudden chanced upon Ice Road Truckers, which is this reality show where they drive these incredibly huge Mack trucks, you know, delivering stuff in the most dangerous part of the world, up north, through snow and ice, and it's quite a compelling show. I'm sort of halfway kidding, but you know, a little bit of TV is sometimes a good thing.
So is that a release from your prestidigitation, or is it kind of in a similar realm? Do you like intense and passionate activities, throwing yourself into the world of big engines, and is that where you swim most comfortably in your psyche?
I don't know if it's about big engines. No, it's more you know, it's a little bit of contrast. The zoning out, vegging out thing is important when you're working a lot, using your brain. Problem is I sit too much still in my life. Got to move more, but it doesn't contribute to that. But that's next week's project.
If you weren't making music as a career, what would you be doing?
Oh goodness. I do have a passion for photography. That much I can say. And the other thing that is really inherent for me is the desire to learn and the desire to teach. So the sort of cycling of the gathering and dissemination of information, and very, like, most important to me in my soul is feeling that I've made a contribution. So teaching fulfills that. So I would probably be a teacher of some sort, or perhaps a listener of some sort in the counseling or helping professions and something like that. Or then again, photography is an incredible outlet, and also a real opening for learning for me too.
You travel a lot. What kind of traveler are you? Are you a backpacker with 5 extra hat boxes? Are you really lean and mean? Do you have everything that whittles down to 1 pair of underwear?
God, I wish I could do that. There's some people in our profession who are like that. I remember traveling alongside Elliot Sharp back in the young days, in my younger days, and boy, he had it down to his guitar and a small backpack for a 2-week trip, and I wish I could do that. No, I have to pay for extra baggage because I carry equipment. As I get older, I travel lighter. I'm learning because it's just too exhausting to take too much. But you know, I always have a violin on my back. I always have a rolling cart, it's actually a photography bag where I keep my camera and my audio interfaces and things like that, and then a suitcase. So it's usually too much, and I usually overpack. Haven't quite gotten that licked yet, but on this trip, I did okay.
Do you have backup laptops in case that one should fry as you're about to walk on stage?
Why do you remind me of this? No, I don't. I should. I have a backup hard drive. I'm there. That's a good thing. But a cloned hard drive. But no, I don't have, and I continually think to myself that that's like what I should be doing. So right after we finish this interview, I might have to go to the Apple store and buy a Mac Mini.
What's your first sound memory?
My first sound memory, God. It's a question I wish I could answer. I'm afraid I'm going to have to bail on you on that. I really don't. Well, here we can tell this side of the story because this is an interesting one. My mother and father, from my earliest days that I can remember, every night as I went to sleep, there was a record, an LP, of the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto or the Beethoven Violin Concerto or some symphony on to put me to sleep. So I grew up listening to classical music as I went to sleep every single night. The only problem with that was that, of course, you know, after 15 minutes or 20 minutes, it would turn into, you know, so that was my earliest experience with electronic music, was the needle going over into the paper and getting beat back. So I think I probably got, you know, big dose of Tchaikovsky, and then every night before my parents would notice that there was no music playing, I got the whole end of the LP needle dance.
This is how history is made. A bit of looping, scratching.
That's it. I ended up being a looper, a repetitive music maker, a minimalist, and an electronic musician. Go figure, huh?
Parents be warned, this is why you wanted to grow up as an ice truck driver.
Nice. Right.
Apart from losing your second hard drive, what's your greatest fear?
Oh, I have many greatest fears. One is that jalapeno cheddar Cheetos will be stricken from the Frito-Lay line, that there's no more ice in the refrigerator, that the MacBook Pro will actually be withdrawn from the Apple product line. Yeah, these are big fears.
What's for you the most mind-blowing work of art, the one that changed your life when you walked into that room or you heard that poem or you stared at that poem or paper or something? Was there a work of art that really said, wow, I've got to reevaluate everything?
Probably, there are probably lots of those. I do remember when I first encountered Kandinsky, actually. That was a big moment for me. And this was just in print. This was not in person. But last year at the Guggenheim, while I was doing a project there, there was a whole room full of Kandinskys, and I think they're still there. And I walked into that room, and it had an even bigger impression on me then. So that's I would have to cite those in terms of visual art. That was a big one. Just off the top of my head, I can't. There's so many that I just can't really pick them out. Another one was the Arditi String Quartet recording of the Zanaka String Quartets. That record, that changed my world quite a bit. Another one was my friends, the group, the Books. When I first heard their first two albums, that was the first time musically in a long time that I've been stunned and said, wow, this is the music I've been wanting to hear, and it does exist, and this is pretty extreme.
Who are your most significant teachers or mentors, and do you have any wisdom to share with the world?
I had the incredible opportunity to study for 2 years with the great violinist Jascha Heifetz, and that experience of just being with him for that much time taught me so much and made me in a lot of ways the musician I am today. Although in very sort of back channel ways. Mr. Heifetz, and I don't know how many times I've told this story publicly, but I'll share it here, that in the waning days of the master class that I was involved in, and he dismissed the class one day. This was our last class, and he asked me to stay after and want to talk to me. And he said to me, you know, Todd, do you know what an avocation is? And I was 18 at the time, and I honestly, by that time, I guess I really hadn't heard the word avocation. I certainly knew the word vocation. I didn't understand it, what he was about to say. And I said, no, I know what a vocation is. And he says, well, an avocation is something like a hobby. And you know, people often do music as an avocation, and for their vocation they do something else, you know, for their life's work, like selling insurance or so on. I said yes, and he said, I think you should sell insurance. So these were virtually the last words I had with my teacher. But you know, it's funny. In my study with him, I got several salient points from him that I sort of took to extremes. One was he used to always lean on us for you know, Bach in the Bach sonatas and partitas. There are all those doubles. They're you know, these A sections and B sections which you repeat, and he would really lean on us to never play them the same way twice, which would seem an obvious thing, but it wasn't so obvious in the training of the time, and he really leaned upon us there. Well, I ended up taking that to an extreme, and not only do I never play repetitive things the same way twice, but I usually don't play the same music twice. I end up, you know, especially in making my own music, I like to create from scratch, and really look for something completely new. There's nothing original really under the sun, but something new for me, and perhaps for the audience every time that I play. So I took that to extremes. And the other thing that he also wouldn't allow us to do is he wouldn't allow us to put fingerings and bowings in our parts, with the idea that you need to be able to negotiate your instrument in any way at any given point in time. Whenever you're presented with a situation, you need to have the skill to flow through it in real time. So I took that with me as well, and it's given me that same sort of thought as I negotiate electronics or whatever. I sort of try to build environments where I can go mercurially, excuse me, from one thing to the next, and maintain a position of flexibility with this instrument, with a laptop, with software. And these are, I guess, pieces of wisdom that I garnered from that great teacher and great musician, that were just kernels, but I took them and they've stayed with me for a long time, and it's something that I also wish to impart to anybody that I'm teaching. You know, these are achievable, reasonable, and very important goals to being able to exist in the world as an artist.
You are both Jekyll and Hyde. You're a composer and a performer of other people's works. Mm-hmm. Tell me how that relates to your project called Outerborough.
Ah, yeah. Well, when I was about 21, 22, I was at the Eastman School of Music, and when I went to school there, within the first year or two, I fell in with a composer very quickly, and with a few composers, and it was very apparent to me, even at that very young age, that the lifeblood of the tradition that I'd been educated in since I was 4, that the lifeblood of this tradition was not in the historical work, but was in the creation of work today that comes out of that form. And so almost in a weird evangelistic way, I sort of gave my life over to the performance of what we tend to typically refer to as new music. And so I was only interested in doing that from the age of 21. And that put me into, because of my educational point of view at that point in that school, it put me straight into the hardcore avant-garde stuff. So I was interested in playing nothing but Babbitt, Carter, Warren, and that was, you know, this was it. And I actually became a little fascistish, you know, a little bit fascist and ideological about that work, and held these people up in the highest esteem. So composition and formalized music became an artistic, you know, like the artistic pinnacle for me. And I did that, you know, for those 3 years that I was at Eastman. Then I got a job in an orchestra right there, the Rochester Philharmonic, and then after 2 years, I realized that wasn't going to do it for me, so I quit and I went down to get a master's degree at SUNY at Stony Brook, also a new music academy. It was there that I discovered that my point of view was too narrow to bear. It wasn't worth a lifetime of living life with that narrow of a focus. So I widened out my focus, and I really discovered my ability to learn some about jazz, learn some about country, about bluegrass, about Irish, and about world music, and and all the other forms of music. It wasn't until about 5 or 6 years later that I was willing to sort of come out of the closet as a composer, because the people that I held up in such high esteem is like that was composed music of today, and I wasn't really willing to, I guess I wasn't able to see myself as ever being able to accomplish that, so it wasn't worth trying. But eventually I found my way through production and through software and through being able to hear myself back and put myself into a digital delay and play against it. I began to find a real joy in creating music and an acceptance of creating music, and let go of my value system, which said that, you know, goodness was only this. So as I continued to broaden out my view, which I think everybody goes through in their coming into adulthood, it was then that I began to acknowledge my own creative impulses, and then it started to blur, right? So for me, Outerborough is two sides of me, which for me inside sort of equally feed my soul. You know, it's my collaborating with other people who are writing music, which feeds my soul tremendously, and then my writing music, which is primarily based, you know, at this point I write music for myself a lot. Although of course I wrote some music for Ethel, and I'm writing music for other people at this time, so I'm sort of more engaged in the writing of music at this point. But the way I came to it was through production. And so this record is a record of my music and a record of all my friends who generously contributed their music to this record, and in a very collaborative way. So it's a celebration of some people who I feel are, you know, incredibly important, whose music is already heard in many other contexts, but I wanted it to be heard in this context. And it's a true collaboration, because we've all been friends for a long time, and they knew who they're writing for, and they know my gear and my bent, and, you know, sort of the directions I love to the air that I love to fly through, or the water I love to swim through, and they wrote me lovely music to play. So that's the sort of the two sides of Outerborough, the inside and the outside.
Todd Reynolds, thank you very, very much.
Thanks so much, and hi everybody.